Good evening. Welcome to the City of Milpitas Planning Commission meeting. Today is May 25th, 7 o'clock. For those going on Zoom, for those who want to make public comments via Zoom, they can be done through the agenda website. You can look that up there. Make sure you register on the website there. For anyone here that wants to make a public comment, in the back of the room, there's some comment cards. So go ahead and fill those out and hand them over to our recording secretary, Ms. Medina. So I'm calling the meeting to order. First item of business, I want to allow a moment of silence for the victims in Texas from yesterday's tragedy. So let's give a moment of silence. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is Pledge of Allegiance. I see that Commissioner Mosen is trying to connect to audio. So why don't I have Commissioner Wasti go ahead and lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item is roll call. Ms. Medina.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, commissioners and members of the public. I will now take attendance, starting with Commissioner Albana. She is absent this evening. Commissioner Awasti.
Here.
Thank you. Chair Chuan.
Present.
Vice Chair Ciardella.
Zooming.
Commissioner Galong.
Present.
Commissioner Medina Ashby.
Present.
Commissioner Mosen.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Medina. Next item, conflict of interest declaration, City Attorney.
I ask each of the commissioners whether he or she has any financial interests or personal conflict of interest related to the item on tonight's agenda.
So Ms. Medina, maybe you want to just go do a roll, kind of go down the row.
Absolutely. I'll start with Commissioner Wasti.
None.
Chair Chuan.
None.
Vice Chair Ciardella.
None.
Commissioner Galong.
None.
Commissioner Medina Ashby.
None.
Commissioner Mosen.
None.
Thank you.
Let the record reflect no reported conflict.
Thank you, City Attorney. Next item is approval agenda. Do any of the commissioners have any comments or any corrections that need to be made on the agenda? If there are none, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, got a motion from Commissioner Medina Ashby. Do I have a second?
Second.
And second from Commissioner Galong. Roll call vote. See Commissioner Mosen.
Present.
Actually, the vote was for the approval of the agenda. So is it aye?
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Medina Ashby.
Aye.
Commissioner Wasti.
I was absent.
Okay, so you're abstaining. Okay. Commissioner Galong.
Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Albana was absent.
No, but this is for tonight's agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is for tonight's agenda, Commissioner Wasti. So aye.
Aye.
Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Glong, aye. Commissioner Albanez is absent. Vice Chair Ciodella
Aye.
and Chair Chuan is aye. So 6-0. Yeah. Okay. Approval of the minutes. Do any of the commissioners have any comments regarding the approval of or the minutes for April 27th? If there are none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes for April 27th?
Move to approve.
Okay, got a motion from Commissioner Mosin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Medina Ashby. Roll call vote. Commissioner Mosin.
Aye.
Commissioner Medina Ashby.
Aye.
Commissioner Owasti. Got to turn on the mic. There you go.
Yeah, I abstain. I was not in the chamber.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Glong.
Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Albana was not here. Vice Chair Ciardella
Aye.
and Chair Chuan. So you have 5-0. All right, next is announcements. So our planning director is absent tonight. So I want to welcome our principal planner who's filling in. So it's Jay Lee, sorry. So I spoke with our planning director. So a couple of announcements, just want to let you guys be aware of. Number one is, one of the items we previously had about Oret Court, it went to City Council and it was approved. Just want to let you guys be aware of that. And it just heads up on a couple of meetings coming up in June. So June 8th, just to give you a meeting preview, we're going to have 2 items coming up. One is going to be for zoning ordinance text amendment. One is going to be on the height and another on an outdoor music venue. And then the second is going to be, and what these will be recommendations for the city council, and then it'll ultimately be to the city council for approval. And then the second item on that's coming up in June is going to be a review of the conditional use permit. And then the second meeting we're going to have in June, there's going to be a couple items on there. 2 of them will be on the 2 time extensions. One of them will be, I think some of you guys, some of the commissioners might be aware of the 1000 Gibraltar Court. So there's going to be a time extension request for that. And then the second will be a food truck park. So just to give the commissioners a heads up around that. Then another thing I just want to give the commissioners a heads up on is, so we have all members of the APA, American Planning Association. So just want to let you be aware that the city is working on updating the membership for that one there. So did you have a comment, Ms. Medina?
Today I faxed over our updated roster, so you guys should be receiving correspondence from the APA at your home addresses.
All right. Thank you very much, Ms. Medina. Okay. And then finally, there are 2 required trainings for us as commissioners. One of them is the AB 1661. That's the harassment training. And the second is AB 1234. That's the ethics training. So just to give the commissioners a heads up that there will be some training coming up sometime soon. That's still to be determined. So just want to give you all a heads up around that. Okay. So in terms of announcements, Principal Planner Jay, did you have anything else you maybe I missed or anything that maybe you wanted to bring up on behalf of the Planning Director?
No other announcements from the Planning Department.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Planner Lee. All right. Next item is a public forum. So Those interested are invited to address the Planning Commission on any subject not on tonight's agenda, orally via Zoom webinar, instructions above in the agenda. Speakers may provide their name and city of residence for the recording secretary's record, and comments may be limited to 3 minutes or less. As an item not listed on the agenda, no response is required from city staff or the Planning Commission, and no action can be taken. Planning Commission may instruct the staff to place the item on a future meeting agenda. At this time, Ms. Medina, do we have any public comments?
Not in the Zoom queue.
Okay,
However, I did receive 4 forms to request to speak. Are these for the agenda item? Okay, then you could come up and speak.
okay,
If it's not agendized, you could come and speak for 3 minutes.
okay. So the first speaker, who do we have?
Michael?
Sure.
They're not familiar.
Okay. Thank you. For the record, could you state your name and your where are you from?
Yeah, my name is Mike Hawkins. Currently, I live at 272 Gerald Circle, Milpitas. I'm actually born and raised in Milpitas off Jupiter Way. Went to Samuel Air High School, graduated at Milpitas High School, and joined the Navy directly after that. I returned after I retired from the Navy. My wife and I returned to Milpitas, and one of our dreams was to, buy a little piece of property on the hill and build a house there. So, in January of last year, we saw some lots that are part of PUD 68 that were available for purchase, and we bought lot number 6. The developer was just finishing up a 1.5-story house on lot number 5 to show that it could be done, and they sold the lots as ready to build, and with the utilities already on site. In November, we had an initial review with planning and submitted plans to build basically a 1.5-story house, just like the one that was just completed next door to it. And initially, planning said everything looked good and it would, it shouldn't be a problem to go through. But about a month later, we were informed that due to the codes, we couldn't build a 2-story house in that area. So I asked about the house that was just completed, and I was told by planning that that was an oversight. So looking around the neighborhood, the house next to that one off Country Club also has 2 stories on it. And then on Country Club itself, just up and down the street, there's a couple other houses that are 2 stories. So there have been some 1.5 and 2-story houses built in the neighborhood, even in the recent past. So, but instead of arguing about this, we redid our drawings and changed it to a 1-story house. But it had a normal sloped roof because we didn't want a flat roof. One of the sections of the roof, though, was 20 feet. And so when I talked to the planning about that, they said that was unacceptable. 17 feet was the max height. So I requested a variance, and I was told no, because the rules state under no circumstances can the roof be over 17 feet. So I've read some of the other variance rules, and there's one of them in particular that said, there's allowances for those variances. And in the codes, there are some exceptions. Long story short, we've spent over $100,000 on redoing architectural plans, because when we've submitted stuff to planning, they tell us one thing, and then a month later, they tell us that that's unacceptable. So I'm looking to you guys for some help on who we can talk to, either above the planner that we're working with, their head, or just some leniency on trying to get a variance for the roof or building things with what seem to be acceptable in the area.
All right. Thank you. That's 3 minutes. For this item here, I'm just wondering, is that something we can take? I know we can, instruct staff to place item, not necessarily on a future meeting agenda, but maybe a suggestion to contact planning director? Is that applicable?
Yeah, you can instruct to contact the planning director, and that might be a good idea. And we can give your contact information. Can you give the contact information? You can get it from the clerk.
Yes. Okay.
We'll ask Ned to follow up.
All right. Thank you. Next speaker.
Next, I have Vu Nguyen.
My name is Vu Nguyen. I'm currently reside at 393 Los Coches Street, Milpitas. I also bought a lot in the same subdivision as Michael. My lot is one street up on Terra Vista Court. I'm in lot 4. My architect started the communicating with planning to get some.
Sorry, 1 second. The timer. Okay, go ahead. Continue.
To get some guidance of how we go about drawing up the plan. We were told that we have to meet the crescent view line restriction. So we set up story pole before we started drawing the plan. And we did. And because of that, we had to, during that process, we also were told that we can allow tree screening to hide some of the architecture of the house from the viewpoints. But then later on, that was withdrawn and said, no, we cannot. So just go ahead and meet the crest line viewpoint restriction. So we spent about $35,000 finishing the plan and about to submit. And recently we were told by the other lot owners that they dug up some documentation and found out that tree screening is allowed. So we're a little bit confused of what is the right rules and direction so we can follow the guidelines and get the plans drawn up correctly.
Me.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I think for this one here again, I would, sir, if you, both you and is it Michael, if you want to, provide your contact to our recording secretary, and then we can instruct the planning director to contact you. Go ahead and provide your contact to Ms. Medina. All right. Next speaker.
Yes, next I have Mayor Trivedi.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present.
Go ahead, Liz. The timer.
Is set. Okay, can I start?
Go ahead, if you don't mind. State your name and
Okay.
where are you from?
So my name is Mayur Trivedi. I currently reside in Milpitas, and I reside in the same HOA as these gentlemen. My house is on lot 5, which is the one that was first built and fully approved by the city. I approached the city to build a driveway so that I can bring my car closer to the front door, because the way the house was built was it was only a driveway leading to the garage, but not to the front door. And city mentioned that we don't need any permits because this is flat work and we don't need a building permit and you don't need a land permit. And so I started getting the driveway just carved out, and I got a phone call from the city planner who threatened me that if you build a driveway without a permit, we will give you a code violation. And as soon as I heard that, I went back to the city. I got a different planner. He said, as long as you abide by the hillside ordinance of water permeation, you should be fine. You don't need any permits and you don't need to come back here anymore. All all along I was going to build a gravel driveway. But now that I feel like I should bring this matter up to the council, I was wondering, is a concrete driveway a variance that could be allowed for my condition? Because of my mom, who is 77 years old, resides with me. She's in a wheelchair and we have wheelchair access needed. And if I can build a driveway that can be a concrete driveway, it would really make my life and her life easy. I do understand the hillside ordinance is a pretty strict ordinance regarding what you can build and how much water permeability you can get. So I was wondering, what is the process to actually get the planning department to approve building me a concrete driveway so that it could be practical, usable for the family? But that's what I wanted to bring up. So once again, I am another resident who was confused by the planning department on whether I need a permit, don't need a permit. And actually I got threatened by one of the planners on the city planning committee saying, if you build a driveway, we will do a code violation. I did send an email to Ned Thomas and somebody responded back saying, come to the office and we'll sort it out. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Just one question. So these are the overall the facility. These are all Las Coach. I mean, what's the name of the overall?
The name of the overall development is Countryside Estates. It's Countryside Estates. It's an HOA with 6 parcels. PUD 68.
Sorry?
PUD 68.
PUE?
PUD.
PUD 68.
And the community that I'm talking about is a 6 parcel HOA community that's called Countryside Estates.
Countryside Estates.
Yeah. So we're part of the same HOA. I'm on lot 5, which is a house built and sold with approval from the city. And I'm trying to get a driveway. I think these gentlemen in the back are trying to get their plans approved so they can actually start building.
So I'm going to instruct the staff, maybe through you, Principal Planner Lee. Let's put this item on the, I'm going to request this item to be for, actually, maybe let's, is there any other speakers before I continue on? Okay, we got one more speaker. Okay, go ahead. Can we get the final speaker?
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Subbu Srinivasan.
Yay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to speak. So I'm a resident of Milpitas, me and my family for the last 13 years. Love the city. I recommend all my friends to come and buy homes. A lot of my friends moved here from other parts of the valley. So I'm in the same predicament as what the other people in the community are. We bought a piece of land. It was sold to us as a valid PUD 68 by the developer. It was marketed properly. There is no, it was done through salespeople, realtors. Everything was online, perfectly done. There's an approved PUD 68. You can go to Milpitas and see it is approved. Nobody told us, nobody told us you cannot build PUD 68 later until after they bought and submitted the plans to the city. Right, so there's a lot of confusion about it. The developer said you can build a house as long as you build with the certain specifications up to the PUD 68. The city is coming back and telling you cannot build. PUD 68 is not valid because of ordinance, some hillside ordinance and expiring everything. So we are at a junction. We're waiting for, I submitted my first plan 8 months ago, probably October. So it can count 8 or 7 months. And I made no progress. My first plan got rejected. The second plan, I converted to 1 story. He still said there's some hillside ordinance issues. My architect has worked diligently with the city office to make sure we adhere to the specifications of PUD 68. Now they keep telling back to us this is whether PUD 68 is valid or not valid. So it almost feels like the city should be helping us out a little bit more in getting this project underway, right? Because we are also we just bought a land. We took loans to buy the property. We're going to build a house there. We are stuck there with the loans and all those things, not able to make progress. So I think I'm not saying maybe variance is the way to go. Give us some variance to the best possible way. But at least the PUD 68 is a valid one. You guys should take a look at it. Tell the planning committee to planning department to look into it actively. So it's been a while. We're still waiting for any responses from them. So at this point, you're the only ones who can help us out, accelerate this process going forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So, again, I think for all that just spoke in regard to Countryside Estates, if you can provide your contact to our recording secretary, Miss Medina, and again, we'll have Ned, our planning director, Ned Thomas, contact you. So, in terms of city attorney, just in terms of potentially adding this item, the Countryside Estates, PUD 68, as a possible future topic for an agenda. Is that something that we can instruct just to, for response from planning director?
You certainly could instruct that. It certainly can be agendized. I'm not sure each of the issues that are faced in PUD 68 are one single issue. I think there are multiple issues and they may need to come back to you per parcel.
Okay. So I think, I'm sorry, sir, we had the public comment was for the 3 minutes. So I think at this time, let's just have get the contacts for all the speakers here, and as long as you provide it to Ms. Medina, and we'll have the planning director get back to you on that. So at this point, I think that's the direction we'll take for this moment. So and then Principal Planner Jay, if you wouldn't mind also just informing planning director as well.
Yes, I'll do that.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Any other items, Ms. Medina?
No other speakers.
All right. All right. Thank you. Tonight, there are no public hearing items. What we do have tonight, though, is new business. And specifically, this is the Gateway Main Street specific plan. So I'm going to hand it over to our principal planner, Jay Lee.
Good evening, commissioners. And I know a lot of times when we have items, it's usually for a development project, taking an action on a development project. But we also do a lot of long-range policy planning, so it's a bit different in terms of the type of subject that we're talking about. But I believe we've come to this commission in the past to give a summary of some of the some of the different policy items that we've been working on, and this is certainly one of them. And we've made some progress. We started this project late last year, and it is the Gateway Main Street specific plan, which is an update to the Midtown specific plan. It's been a while since the Midtown specific plan was approved, and we were due for an update. So we initiated that last year, and we just wanted to come to the commission to provide a progress report on the existing conditions analysis that we've done so far. Usually with these types of projects where we try to establish a vision for a neighborhood, the first steps is always to analyze the existing conditions, and we've completed several reports with the help of Ascent Environmental. And we wanted to just provide a summary of what we've found so far in this area. So we have Christine Babla here from Ascent Environmental. They specialize in environmental analysis and also urban design. And she is here, and I'll hand it off to Christine to go through the presentation.
All right, thank you, Jay, and good evening, commissioners. My name is Christine Babla. I am leading the consultant work on the Gateway Main Street specific plan effort. So very happy to be here today and present our initial work on this important project and to hear your feedback. Next slide. So today I'll provide a brief introduction to the project with an overview of the project scope and timeline, as well as an update on the land use zoning and urban form analysis. I'll provide some key takeaways from the market and retail analysis and end on next steps and upcoming work and some discussion questions. Next slide. So first, I'll start with an introduction to the project scope and timeline. Next slide. Thank you. So this timeline illustrates our planning process. We've completed the first part of the process, which was devoted to existing conditions assessments and included multiple site visits and preliminary outreach. We're now beginning the second part, which is community visioning. We are having these study sessions, and we will be shortly starting on public engagement, working towards developing a draft vision and guiding principles in fall of 2022. After that, we will work on scenario planning and towards the winter, towards the end of the year, and then the draft plan and EIR. And finally, we'll look to finalize the project in the latter part of next year, 2023. So you'll see with each step in the process, we will be including study sessions and community engagement to make sure that we are hearing feedback all throughout our process. Next slide. So a little bit about the community engagement process. This is really critical to all of the work that we do. We are working towards our first technical advisory committee meeting, which will occur next week. We're also working on developing and launching the project website and engaging with initial stakeholder interviews in June and working towards a public workshop in the latter part of next month, where we'll be getting community input for priorities and needs and the community's vision. So this effort will really build upon previous engagement efforts, which included community conversations and a holiday magic pop-up. If you can go to the next slide. So preliminarily, we've heard some really great feedback in these sessions. There were 3 community conversations that the city held around this time last year. And these sessions included breakout rooms with report backs, and they were well attended. We did hear an interest in growing the local economy with diverse local businesses and a real desire for family-friendly activities, community spaces, and nightlife. And then our team held a pop-up at the December Holiday Magic event on Main Street, and we were able again to get some really good feedback from the event participants. We heard an excitement about Main Street becoming a real downtown and a place to go and be. So these are some photos from those events. Next slide. All right, well, next I'll provide an overview of the analysis that we did in the land use zoning and urban form analysis work. Next slide. As Principal Planner Lee mentioned, the Midtown specific plan was first adopted in 2002, and it was updated in 2010. The boundary for that plan is shown in the orange outline on the screen. The Midtown plan boundary will be adjusted with this effort to focus the effort on the revitalization of the historic Main Street and the Calaveras Gateway. So you'll see that adjusted boundary in the golden yellow tone. And then the green gray area to the southeast of the plan area is the Metro specific plan, which is in the final phases of development. So these 2 areas are adjacent to each other, but regulated by the 2 different specific plan documents. The area south of the Great Mall Parkway is currently part of the Midtown plan. However, with the planning work, there will be about boundary adjustment, and this southern area south of the Great Mall Parkway will be removed from the planning document. And then finally, the Midtown specific plan will be renamed the Gateway Main Street specific plan to reflect this new focus. Next slide. So this area shows those areas that are being added, again, in the golden yellow color, which includes the Sobrato Center area to the northwest of the plan boundary, and then the residential areas west of Able to the freeway. That frontage is being added as well along I-880. And then the Park Metro area will be added as well to the boundary. And then you'll see in the gray tone, that area south of Great Mall Parkway is being removed. So there are a number of existing residential neighborhoods in the plan area, and we think these are very important. So we're calling them out in this brown hatch. This includes the areas south of Calaveras, the neighborhoods to the west, and then the Terra Serena Luna residential area, and Park Metro and Park West. These areas will be considered areas of preservation, so we will not be including or proposing any land use changes in these residential areas. Next slide. There are two areas that we are calling urban reserve in the plan, and this includes the areas in blue hatch, which is the Elmwood Correctional Facility, and the Urban Pacific Freight Yard. These are large areas, so they will be addressed with high-level policy only. And in the event that there are opportunities that arise with these parcels, the specific plan will be able to provide direction to ensure that any future planning and development is consistent with the long-term vision for the area. Next slide. So here we have provided some scale comparisons for reference. Shown on the left side of the screen is the Main Street and Calaveras corridors. And then shown at the same scale are Santana Row, Japantown in San Jose, and Castro Street in Mountain View. We often look at scale comparisons for precedence and how the scale of our plan area and the character can compare to some other notable places that people may be very familiar with. So our key takeaway from this study is that the study area, particularly these corridors, are large and the corridors are long. So other built out main streets tend to have a more compact scale, which helps them to be very walkable and pedestrian friendly. So we'll be looking at precedents along the way just to make that connection and in terms of scale and character. Next slide, please. This graphic illustrates the block patterns in the plan area. This is a study we like to do to make sure we understand some of the real oftentimes challenges that may be hard to articulate otherwise, but you see there are east-west streets, for example, along Main and Able that are offset and discontinuous. There are some very large, long blocks with limited connections throughout the district. And when I say large, some metrics are between 700 and 2,600 feet. So you may have to go a half mile before you reach a connection through the plan area. And then furthermore, there are some walls and gates that limit that access and provide some challenges for connectivity. So moving forward with the plan, we'll be looking at these sorts of things and addressing them with urban design solutions and policies. And some of those could be including requiring that large parcels create smaller subparcels as development occurs. And we will be looking to add east-west connections, including vehicle and pedestrian connections wherever possible. And then providing design standards to orient new development to the street and the pedestrian realm to further enhance connectivity throughout the area. Next slide, please. This graphic illustrates some of the existing development standards in the plan area specific to heights and the zoning. Some of our key takeaways are that FARs, heights, and other standards don't enable development consistent with the specific plan or the current general plan vision. Main Street, for example, has a 0.75 FAR, which is low for a 3-story, 45-foot height limit. And we found that generally the FAR and height requirements are inconsistent with the specific plan goals of enhancing the area with residential and mixed use. So again, moving forward, as we start to develop strategies, we want to consider calibrating the standards to facilitate the type of development that we hear is desirable for the community and the city. And with that, we will want to really evaluate parking and open space requirements, again, to ensure that they're consistent with the vision for the area and can help create a more pedestrian-friendly place. Next slide. These are a couple of graphics on ownership patterns. We always look to ownership in the plan area, and generally we found that Main Street in particular included a great deal of very small parcels. So the ownership along Main Street was very fragmented, which will limit opportunities for change. Here on these graphics, you see the larger land holdings and the publicly owned parcels. Many of which have vacant buildings or land and can be seen as potential catalyst sites. These are really the areas that can support redevelopment and help to establish some of the new street connections, public realm improvements, and open spaces that we've heard will be desirable. Next slide. So in this area, a very important consideration, particularly for Main Street, is the social, cultural, and community anchors. And this area is home to a mix of religious, cultural, educational, and public uses that all converge along Main Street. So these anchors will be really key to what makes Main Street a diverse and a unique center. So this will be very important to the planning process and to our engagement efforts as well. So the emphasis of the specific plan will be centered around 3 focus areas. These focus areas are shown in the colored tone. So Calaveras Boulevard, the Calaveras Gateway is shown in the blue, covering both sides of Calaveras Boulevard. And then Main Street, stretching from Calaveras Boulevard to Curtis Avenue, is shown in orange. And then at the west, that purple tone is the I-880 Abbott corridor along the freeway. These are really the areas where redevelopment and change are expected to occur. So again, will be the focus of the work. Next slide. So within the focus areas, the crossroads are an area of special interest. This is the area with the red outline and includes portions of Calaveras Boulevard and Sarah Way, as well as North Main Street. So we see this area as really having the best potential for creating a really walkable downtown. So we'll be wanting to make sure that very thoughtful planning will be done to address the issues that we've identified in the previous slides. And we want to make sure that the specific plan offers very detailed urban design guidance for future improvements, particularly in the crossroad areas. Next slide. So the focus areas shown in the previous slides include opportunity areas that can be looked at as future catalyst sites. These include the Calaveras Gateway, Sarah Center, North Main and Carlo, the area I talked about, the crossroads, as well as vacant parcels such as that one on Thomas Thompson Court at the west, and parcels at the intersection of South Main and Tom Evatt Park, and then finally the Curtis Avenue Gateway. We are looking at all of these areas as really being prime opportunity to implement the vision moving forward. Next slide. All right, so I will provide a very brief overview of the market and retail analysis. We have BAE Urban Economics and Greensfelder Commercial Real Estate as part of our team. So the next slides will capture some of their key takeaways from their initial work and their deliverable. In terms of residential development, they found that there's a very strong market for new residential in the plan area. The proximity to BART as well as new amenities in the metro area will be very desirable. There are smaller parcels which can be opportunities for ownership housing. There will be incentives needed for parcel aggregation to address some of the smaller parcels and challenges that I spoke of earlier. But with that, we do see a variety of densities possible. So really an ability to capture different markets and have some really unique kinds of development, such as those seen on the photos, including examples like the Milpa Village townhomes, which you have on Main Street, and some of these other examples which show 3 to 4 to 5 story development that can be quite vibrant. Next slide, please. So in terms of office and industrial, we see this really as being along the I-880 corridor and that west gateway that I mentioned. They found that this is really the eastern end of the 237 corridor path of development. So that's a big opportunity, as well as that freeway frontage and the large sites and vacant parcels. That's really a key opportunities for the area. Next slide. And then finally, I'll touch on retail. There is strong demographic support for retail. There are some existing challenges, particularly along Main Street. So you see that in these diagrams, the land ownership is fragmented, as I mentioned earlier. And there are some challenges with parcel depths and frequent curb cuts, as you see on the diagram at the right. So generally, retail works best with a compact, walkable environment, and that's one of the reasons that we're looking to the crossroads is really a key opportunity for future retail development in the area. Next slide. Some trends coming from Greensfelder Real Estate Strategy. The top retail trends have been highly influenced by the COVID-19 and the post-COVID environment. We're seeing an acceleration of retail trends that really were already in place. We're seeing that accelerate, and some interesting short versus long-term challenges. Retail, we're seeing, is increasingly a key to the success for other land use types. Strong retail environment really makes it a place to be and has a lot of attraction for different types of visitors and residents. So I think malls are yesterday's news. We've known that for a while, but that trend has been accelerating, and so has that physical digital relationship with the consumer and online shopping. So we really see an adaptation of public spaces and common areas. So together with urban design and planning, really creating places and then focusing the activation around those places becomes even more important in a district like this. Next slide, please. And then a little bit about nodes versus corridors. Nodes are a planning term that we like to use, but we really like to see the opportunity for people to linger longer in an area. People want to be where people are. So when we're designing public spaces, we want to design deliberate public spaces, but also accidental ones, so that there is an element of discovery and excitement for visitors, and really creating a welcoming environment that's fun to go to we find that this will only create success and attract more success for businesses that are also adjacent. Next slide. All right, well, next I'll go on to our next steps and some key discussion questions. So in terms of next steps, I mentioned that we will be having our first TAC meeting next week, and we will be initiating stakeholder interviews and our first public workshop in June. So very excited to get that feedback. After we have those engagement activities, we'll begin our initial visioning and start putting together planning concepts in the summer. And then we'll be looking to future study sessions, addressing topics such as planning priorities, land use and development, transportation and mobility, public realm design, economic development, and then finally the review of the draft document late in 2023. Next slide. So we have a number of questions. We want to hear from you, and we would love to hear what you think about the 3 focus areas. What are your priorities for each of the focus areas, including Main Street, the Calaveras corridor, and the Abbott I-880 frontage? And then what are your thoughts on the crossroads area at Able, Sarah, and Main Street as really being the key location for revitalization in Main Street? And then do you have any specific suggestions or insights for us as we begin our outreach and engagement activities? We welcome your feedback there. And then finally, we would love to hear what you think is the appropriate scale and density of development for the Main Street and Calaveras corridors in particular. So with that, that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to your feedback.
All right, thank you, Ms. Babla. So just, there's the questions, on the screen there. So you just wanted to open up to the commissioners if anyone has any comments or, or responses to any of the questions that are posed on there. So I see I have Commissioner Medina Ashby. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do have a question. So you said it was approved in 2002. That's 20 years later. What has been the holdup on building and expanding?
If I may, I could.
Go ahead.
I could answer a little bit. So since then, we've mostly seen a lot of development on the southern end of the plan area, which is why we're removing it, because a lot of that has already happened. And I think that's due to the proximity to the BART station. Mm-hmm. This area has been a little bit more of a challenge. As Senate Environmental mentioned in their presentation, a lot of the parcels are small, and a lot of developers are looking to assemble parcels for larger developments. So it's more challenging when there's a wide diversity of ownership in the area. And the plan just, it was updated in 2010, and we attempted to update it, I think a few years ago, but we had some issues there. So we're kickstarting this effort to try it again. But the market we see has changed over time, and some of our zoning requirements may be outdated. So I think this is a good opportunity to try to kickstart that development again. There are a lot of different market reasons why maybe certain uses might not come to the area. Which is why the market analysis was key to start with. So we can kind of set the right policies to encourage the development that has been lagging a little bit.
Okay, I know that, like you said, there are a lot of smaller homes, and I know on that street there's quite a few empty lots. How do you obtain those specific properties to build and grow?
So I'm not sure which parcels we're talking about, but the existing residential neighborhoods, we have identified as not really changing, because the lower density areas we see as stable neighborhoods that aren't really appropriate for redevelopment. But when there are other sites sprinkled throughout the plan, as you can see on this map, I think if you look closely, it's in orange. They're spread throughout. It's from the city's perspective, all we can do is establish good zoning requirements that would incentivize redevelopment. In hopes that a developer will work with the landowners to try to acquire the parcels and assemble. We can try to encourage developers to, assemble parcels by providing some different incentives. But it's, we set the policy, we set the framework, and we hope for the best.
Thank you, Commissioner Medina Ashby. Any other commissioners have any comments or even responses for the questions that are on the screen here? I see that Commissioner Mosen has her hand raised. Go ahead, Commissioner Mosen. And you're on mute. Yep. You're still on mute, Commissioner Mosen. I don't know.
Yeah, hi.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
my question was that he just mentioned that the market trends have changed. I would like to know what kind of market trend changes has come up. Can you educate us on that?
Go ahead.
Lately, I think there's been a greater demand for housing, especially with the population growth and rising cost of living in the area. And this isn't unique to Milpitas, it's in the Bay Area, but also California. And it's something that the state is trying to address at a larger scale. But they are encouraging cities at the local level to do what we can to help meet this housing demand.
Okay. So are there any specific kind of housing that's more in demand? Or do you have something specifically for this kind of area, like, in the report she was mentioning that the height variance, are they going to come up with a design idea, what would be in the corridor? How are they going to develop this with the new market trends?
The market analysis is showing that there is a bit of a demand for multifamily development, and we've seen a lot of that recently in Milpitas. So that's kind of the way that we're trending. Most of our areas are already built out, and we are a largely suburban city with low density residential, but we do think along Main Street there's opportunity to maybe provide a little bit more multifamily high density development, but at an appropriate scale. So we would definitely be sensitive to the existing context. It's a little bit different maybe than the metro plan area to the south, close to the BART station, where you would, it's probably an appropriate area for a lot larger scale of a development. But here we kind of see maybe a medium scale development.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Mosen. I see that Commissioner Galong, you have, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the Serra Center, it is part of Abbott focus areas. The Serra Center, what will happen in that area? Are they going to, before about 2002, 2004, I attended some meetings, and then there's a proposal they're going to build a mixed use in that area. What's the plan for that?
Go ahead.
I believe there have been proposals in the past. They just haven't gone through, which is why that's a prime opportunity area. But we still think that there are ways to try to make it more of an attractive site for developers. To be honest, I'm not too clear on the specifics of past proposals, but yeah, that's something that we've identified as an important site. So we're hoping to help that redevelopment happen.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I see Vice Chair Ciardella. Go ahead, Vice Chair.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions here. I've been looking at the map there, and I'm wondering why we're not including the railroad yard, because that could sure be a huge area to develop eventually. And I'm just curious as to why they're not including that. You know, I always thought if you want to develop Main Street, you have to have place for people to park, and maybe a parking garage would be ideal in one of those little areas there where the railroad yard is. And then the second comment I've got, and I think I might need some clarification, but in the business area that you guys talked about, there's that big empty lot there next to the car dealerships. Doesn't that belong to the county already now? And do they have any ideas as to what to put on there? It's going to be another car dealership. That's what I've always heard. But I just wanted a little clarification on both those questions. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. Lee, but I also see that Economic Development Director Alex Andrade's also got his hand raised. So were you deferring to him to
I'll
comment
definitely
there?
defer to Alex for the
Okay.
second question.
Okay.
But I could answer the first.
Okay, go ahead. You answer the first, and then we can have Mr. Andrade answer the remainder.
So for the first question, sorry, actually, what was the first question again?
Vice Chair, what was your first question again? If you wouldn't mind repeating it for Mr. Lee.
Yeah, it was, you know, why aren't you including the railroad yard? That's a huge piece of property that, you know, if we look into the future, we might be able to get it developed and maybe we can get the ball rolling a little bit.
That's a great comment and a great question. So if you look at the plan area and the strategy so far, we've tried to categorize the land into 3 different categories. One of them being the focus areas where we're focusing on for short-term immediate redevelopment. And we have areas that are, you know, low density existing single family neighborhoods that we don't expect change in. But then there's this third category, and that's the railroad property and also Elmwood facility, where they are currently, you know, owned and occupied by other uses that we don't necessarily see moving in the near-term future. But we did not want to miss the opportunity to establish good policies and zoning requirements should they redevelop. So, you know, we're kind of remaining at the high level where we do want to, you know, if by chance they do redevelop and the opportunity arises, we do want to have policies in place through this plan to ensure that, you know, they can redevelop in a way that would benefit the city. So it's for these areas, you know, for example, the railroad property, it's owned by the railroad, and you know, we've had conversations with them, but you know, we don't necessarily see those, you know, changing immediately. But we do, you know, and I think you brought up a great point about, you know, the potential for those sites. So we do. That's why we're calling it the urban reserve areas. If that makes sense. And I will defer to Mr. Andrade for the second question.
Go ahead, Mr. Andrade. Thank you and welcome.
Sure. Good evening, Chair Chuan and Vice Chair Ciradella and Planning Commissioners. My name is Alex Andrade. I'm Director of Economic Development. My pleasure to be here. In terms of Vice Chair Ciradella's question about the empty lot next to the car dealership, I believe he's referring to the 6.5 acre lot that fronts Highway 880 and next to Honda and Toyota. You're absolutely correct. That 6.5 acre lot, known as Parcel 4, is owned by Santa Clara County. They have been trying actively to bring another car dealership onto that site. And so they've had a couple of different requests for proposals in the last few years, and unfortunately hasn't returned viable car dealerships there. You may recall that there have been discussions about potential transitional housing on that lot. I haven't been in touch with the asset manager, Glenn Williams, at the county in a while, but that seemed to not be a very favorable use for that particular site. In terms of economic development and the city's response, we agree with Santa Clara County trying to bring in another revenue generating type business on that lot. So we'll continue to monitor and can also come back with a little bit more information through Principal Planner Lee soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Andrade. Any other commissioners have any other questions? Okay, Commissioner Awasti.
Yes, when there was Holiday Magic, there was some kind of survey taken from about 25 people, and they wanted affordable housing and some kind of business in the Main Street area. Were they all residents of Milpitas? And also, when we are talking of metro plan, specific metro plan, and the height development for the Main Street, do we have any specific that we are going to go 3 stories or 2 stories or even more than that? And what about parking? Parking is a very big issue. When we talk of all these developments, we have to talk about parking. So in all the presentations which I just saw, the parking element was also missing, and we can't have very high density housing on Main Street. And also there are a lot of small parcels, as was mentioned. So is it possible that we come out with a plan, and so that the owners can get together, give them some specific plan for development, and make it easy for them to develop their properties? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Awasti. Go ahead, Mr. Principal Planner Lee.
Regarding the encouraging or facilitating the owners to redevelop, I think a lot of that comes in with the zoning requirements that we put in. Perhaps right now they're a little bit restrictive, as Mrs. Babla mentioned. The height limits are 3 stories or 45 feet. The FAR is 0.75, which doesn't allow for a lot of redevelopment. So we don't have any specific numbers in mind, but right now we're still in the very early stages. So the analysis will, I think, help us identify what the issues are, and then through the community outreach, I think we can help start to think about the strategies for Main Street and potentially looking at, we don't know yet, but potentially looking at different maximum height requirements and FAR requirements and other things. And then when it comes to parking, we did analyze parking. We also completed a transportation analysis. It's just that it's a lot of information to jam into this presentation, but we did look at it, and perhaps in a future study session, that's something that we can focus on greatly. But in terms of parking, the residents have expressed different ideas, different concerns, and whether it's a parking structure or on-street parking or the parking requirements for each development as it redevelops, there are a lot of different ways to try to address the parking, and also to provide other ways to travel so that we aren't as dependent on driving in the area. But yeah, that's something that we're definitely going to look at to greater detail.
Thank you.
All right. Any other commissioners have any comments or questions? If not, I have one, just, probably on number 3 that you have on there for the questions. And part of it too, I want to comment that would actually kind of fall in with items number 1 and number 2 on some of the thoughts. So I think a lot of it, should be, somewhat community outreach and just some things that I've seen that have been successful. Just a lot of things on social media. I know recently, within the city, the planning department was also involved. There was that ADU kind of like a seminar. So if there was some kind of an outreach, something along that lines where you advertise it on social media, like say Facebook or whatever along that ways there, people are receptive to that. and looking at that, and you put that on the city website, they do look at that. And if you have some sort of a town hall type of style where you ask those questions on number 1 and number 2, as well as number 4, I think those will be, pretty key there. So just my, as part of the questions that you had here, that's would be my specific suggestion around that. All right. I see Commissioner Owasti, you have another question or comment?
Yes, as to what you just mentioned, it is always better that to have the outreach on Main Street also, so that all the small lot owners, all the business people and the landlords, everybody can get together, come, and they can let us know. And including the zoning department should be there so that they come to know firsthand what the people actually need. And so that they can work on it depending on the whole of Main Street. So that way, at least every person is reached and what problems they have in developing, and everything can come to the forefront. And so we can have a policy going forward when we reach every person. Reaching people individually is not serving the purpose till now. So I echo what you said, and then outreach is very, very important. It will really serve a good purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Owasti. I don't know if you have any comments, Principal Planner Lee. Or...
That's a great comment, and we have a lot of the engagement coming up, so we are excited to do that. And we have a lot of interviews, a lot of different groups that we're trying to talk to. Thank you.
And then one other comment on number 3. So, at least what I saw on, some of the, like for instance, that ADU that was kind of put on, I think there was also a lot of fun in there too. So by making it somewhat fun, you do get a lot of, folks kind of coming in and, feeling like they're part of the, community outreach and just sort of being part of that so that you can, and if you set up some sort of like a, in addition, like a town hall style, but, kind of in like a classroom type setting or something like that, that would be fun, and really get the community involved in there. So anyway, that's my feedback on item number 3, just because I felt it would tie into 1, 2, and 4 as well. So, all right. Any other commissioners have any other comments or questions on this topic? Let me see if I can see. I see Vice Chair Sierradell has his hand raised. Okay, go ahead, Vice Chair.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I guess to me that railroad yard looks very juicy to develop, in the future. Is there any way that, planning can maybe just draw some roads in there with, a pencil and the plans? This way, at least a railroad knows that we are interested. I realize it's considered a super fund for cleanup because of all the railroad cars that have gone through there. And maybe that's the reason why they're waiting. But anyway, I just thought maybe it'd just give them a little incentive to maybe do something. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Mr. Lee, you had a comment?
Yes, and Mr. Andrade could also add to this if he'd like, but we have met with staff from the railroad and we've had good conversations, so we are working on that front. And also for the plan, we have identified, we are aware that there are some connection challenges on that large parcel. So I think your suggestion for thinking of new connections for that area in the event that it redevelops is a great one. And that is something that we will look into.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Okay. Commissioner Mosen, I see your hand raised. Here, and you're on mute. You're still on mute.
I'm so new to this.
Okay, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Still learning. My suggestion was that since there's going to be residential development, and that's the new trend that you have emphasized. Is there any possibility that in the planning process you create, like on the first floor of one of the buildings, there's a grocery store or a shopping center or something like that? Because it's going to be a walking corridor, and in European cities, usually there's always like a grocery store. People come from work, they pick up bread and whatever, and they go home like fresh vegetables and stuff like that. That might be like an incentive, something for the developers, and also future development follows faster when they see conveniences already in that area. Thank you, Chair. That was just a suggestion.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Mosen. Mr. Lee, if you had any comments on, or were you able to hear her question or comments or anything, or anything to add to that?
Yes, mixed use development is definitely something that we'd like to facilitate here. Maybe the northern end, as we've identified it as the crossroads, would focus more on retail, but we see hopefully we would hope to see mixed use development throughout the corridor, and the zoning currently does is currently mixed use, but we want to make sure that that development can happen where we see those amenities so that this neighborhood can be a place where people can come to do a lot of different things.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any other comments from commissioners or?
Just one comment. I'm really excited about it. I especially like the idea of the main street and how they compared it to Santana Row. I've lived in Milpitas for about 15 years now, but I don't do a lot of nightlife, dining, going out here. I'm always in Santana Row or Mountain View, Los Gatos. I'm everywhere else except my own city. So I really love this idea. Excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Mindine Ashby. Commissioner Wasi, I thought I saw your light come on briefly, and then did you have a comment, or if not, it's okay. Okay. All right. Any other comments? Okay. All right. Doesn't look like there's any other comments. There's a great discussion here. Thank you, Ms. Babla and Mr. Lee. I don't know if you had any final comments or on this topic or no.
Just thank you for your time.
All right. No, thank you very much. Okay. So there was, so on the new business, there's nothing to vote on or anything. So thank you again for this discussion here. So, okay, so next item here is the legalese. Any person aggrieved by any final decision of any board, commission, or department head to the city of Milpitas may appeal the decision to the city council by filing written notice of the appeal with the city clerk within 12 calendar days of the date of said decision and paying the required fee. This time limit shall be strictly enforced. Next item I have is adjournment. Prior to adjournment, one thing I did skip prior to when in the announcements, I did not ask if the planning commission has any announcements. So if that's okay, I'm just wanted if any of the planning commissioners had any announcements. Okay, if not, okay, then I'm gonna let's do the adjournment. So do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, I got a motion from Commissioner Wasti. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, I got a second from Commissioner Vice Chair Ciardella. So roll call vote. Commissioner Medina Ashby.
Aye.
Commissioner Wasti.
Aye.
Commissioner Galong.
Aye.
Commissioner Mosen. You're on mute. I'll take, yeah, I thought you said aye. Okay. And then Vice Chair Ciardella.
Aye.
And Chair is aye. So meeting is adjourned. Thank you.